Hi, I'm Mallory. I'm the CEO of Lacuna Loft. Lacuna Loft is a nonprofit organization offering support programs to young adult cancer patients, survivors, and caregivers. And I'm really excited to continue on with this newer program of ours, the speaker series. And I'm really looking forward to introducing you to our speaker today, Jenn. So Jenn, take it away.
Hi, I'm Jenn and I am a two-time breast cancer survivor, young breast cancer survivor, and I'm also the author of the book, Does This Outfit Make Me Look Bald? So I've been doing some advocacy for about 10 years now, and I'm here to answer some questions.
So Jenn's overall kind of topic is talking about kind of survival and what does it mean to survive and how does some of that change once there's been a recurrence. So some of the questions that people have submitted, let's see. What do you say to people who think that you should always be grateful as a cancer survivor? Do you have a canned response that you use again and again?
I don't think I necessarily have a canned response. I will say that each day survivorship brings a new challenge. And there are days when you feel good and you almost feel like pre-cancer normal. And then there are days when the pain of taking the AIs from Arimidex or tamoxifen or whatever you happen to be on is so unbearable. You just want to flush the pills down the drain and go back to bed. There are days where, the stress from work and family and kids and finances is just so exhausting. You start to question, I survived to deal with this crap. It's not all, I always say it's not all unicorn farts. It's you've got good days and you've got bad days. And, I just always say that I'm not a superhero. I don't do anything any differently than I think anybody else in my situation. We're all flawed. We question, we hurt, and in the wake of the cancer, it brings a lot of those topics to the forefront. So I just say that I'm grateful to be here. But it can be draining. So, I have struggles like anybody else. They don't go away with the perspective of cancer. So.
I think that last point is like nail on the head. Like they don't go away with the perspective of cancer. I moved recently and moving still sucked, even after surviving cancer.
Exactly. It's like, okay, it doesn't take your problems away because you've had this massive problem. Things still bother you. You're human, you're flawed. I think to say otherwise, it can be a little disingenuous. I mean, it's hard. Life is hard.
How have your feelings about what survivorship means changed since your recurrence, especially since that terminology, survivor in general, kind of comes with its own things?
Yeah, it does. It comes with a lot of baggage. And, when I finished treatment the first time around, back in 2007, I found the word survivor to be really powerful and almost heady in a way. It was, I overcame this insurmountable thing and I came out the other side and, wow, I'm strong and I don't know how I did that, but I did it. And then after the second diagnosis, it became a little cagey when it came to that word. And it's kind of like, yeah, I'm a survivor now, but I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. And I said, it's almost like that line from Harry Potter, he who must not be named. Sometimes you kind of feel like that when you use that term because, yeah, I've survived up to this point. I also know that could be taken away from me in the blink of an eye. So, it's like walking a little bit of a tightrope.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of piggybacking on that is our next question, actually. What tips or tricks do you use during those bad days to kind of get yourself back on track and living in the moment, to kind of reshift perspective?
Yeah, that's really important because it's so easy to get, bogged down in the day-to-day and the weight of survivorship. And, I just, when it's a tough day, when there's just challenge after challenge after challenge, I just kind of remind myself to just relish the moment that I'm in and be present. And I say it all the time, and I say it to my children, and I say it to my coworkers, and I say it to my friends, my family. I always say, just be present, whatever that is. Savor that sip of wine, and relish the warmth when you taste it, and embrace the mundane. Embrace those days where it's just kind of, "Oh, I gotta do laundry, I gotta cook dinner, I gotta," but there can be something special in that, and sometimes it's just embracing that quiet time. um Embrace that little sip of coffee and get that little kick of caffeine, and that feels really good, and enjoy the seasons. And in the summertime, breathe deep and let the sea air fill your lungs. And when it's wintertime, enjoy the feeling of the cold against your skin, and the cozy sweater or thick socks you might be wearing. It's when you start to delight in those little everyday things, um, it just kind of makes you aware of all the things that are going on around you. And to me, it just kind of helps reset myself a little bit.
Yeah, that is a great suggestion. I actually didn't realize why I was doing this, I think, until you mentioned all of that. But into my survivorship, I started blogging as a way
Yeah.
to kind of just reconnect with people and to try to meet other survivors. And in the beginning, it was just a personal blog, and then I moved on to Lacuna Loft, which was just
Yeah.
a blog, and now we're a nonprofit, which is a totally different conversation.
Sure.
But I started a personal blog, and I would blog 5 days a week, and it would just be little things like, oh, I made this new recipe, and my husband and I went to the pumpkin patch, and oh, look how cute my dogs are in the yard, or but it was like a way of everyday logging something that had actually happened, because otherwise it felt like so much was happening without me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like my way of cataloging, and it was
being
so
present.
therapeutic.
It was your way of being present in your own life, and in just embracing those little things that maybe you did take for granted before, or maybe you just never viewed as special. But they are. I mean, even when I sit down to that cup of coffee in the morning, or have a sip of wine in the evening, it's part of a ritual. It's part of, coffee is kind of beginning the day, and the wine is kind of the winding down of the day. And it's just being there, and embracing those little sensations, because they can be kind of sweet.
Yeah, absolutely. So, talking about kind of the words that we use for survivorship, there's been a lot lately about this battle terminology.
Mhm.
Even more of those conversations popped up when John McCain was diagnosed. So
Yeah.
I feel like it comes in and out as a hot topic.
Mhm.
So what are and it's I think it's a very personal thing for everybody. And kind of
Absolutely.
like what you said earlier, it might change your feelings about it. But what are your opinions on the very pervasive kind of battle terminology that is often used for cancer
Yeah.
survivorship?
Yeah. And I understand the comparisons to a war, especially when you think about war without a clear or defined winner or end. I think it can be very relevant to what it is like when you're dealing with cancer, because it is an ongoing and exhaustive battle, and sadly, there is carnage also. Um, Sometimes it's that daily pep talk in the foxhole of, that one for the Gipper, and you're going to drag yourself to treatment knowing full well how horrible you are going to feel after the treatment. I always say, sometimes I feel like there's a mental combat of just trying to find the right words to explain how I'm feeling. And some of that goes back to what it's like to deal with chemo brain fog and all that stuff. So I understand pairing war terms with any kind of health situation that is life changing. And I always say too, there's that fight not to reach out and slap the person that tells you this is a gift. Because boy, that's a fight when somebody goes, hey, you'll look back on this and you'll be really happy. No, no way. So for me, I can embrace those terms. I understand why some people don't. I get it. Because I think some people look at it like war has a winner. And not all of us win in cancer. And I get it. For me though, there's just a lot of little battles, and without a clear defined winner, we know who the bad guy is. If nothing else, we all know who the bad guy is. We all know it's cancer. So to me it works, but I understand why it doesn't work for everybody. I get it.
Yeah. Yes. And for me, it doesn't bother me either. I don't really like the idea of losing the battle.
No.
But I think that's different than the battle terminology in general.
I agree. I don't think if you pass away from cancer, you've lost a battle. I think it's just, it's part of the fight. It's just part of the fight. And you've contributed in whatever way you brought your cancer to helping others fight their cancer, to aiding in research and an understanding of what happens when you hear the words you have cancer. So I don't think there's any losers. I think there's a bad guy. We're all fighting the same thing. We're fighting this disease, and it's insidious and it's evil and it's overtaking and it's terrifying. And I think we all fight. I think every single one of us is a fighter and a warrior and in the battle. But no, there's nobody that loses. I mean, you've battled, you've fought, and you've contributed.
Yeah, I think that phrase losing the battle is just said to kind of distract from what actually happened.
Yeah.
Like it's just like kind of smooths over the rough edges of that situation.
Right.
My mother passed away from cancer, and when I don't use those, thank you. When I don't use those types of phrases, when I'm just like, oh no, my mother died or my mother is dead, like people's eyes, like that is not how we typically talk about death, which I also think would be a totally wonderful separate conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, because you do hear so many different perspectives, and people that are devoutly religious in different types of religions have a very different way of explaining somebody passing away, as opposed to people who are just very spiritual but non-religious, and they view it as something else. And then there's people that you just don't know the right words, and you maybe repeat something that you've heard before because there's some comfort in those terms, or maybe they comforted you at some point. I remember I was a child, I lost my father, and people came up to me and they said, I'm so sorry. And I was 8 years old. I didn't understand. You didn't kill him. Why are you telling me you're sorry? What did you do? I didn't understand that was just something people said. I didn't have that. Nobody had ever really passed away close to me up to that point. So I didn't really have that perspective to understand, well, there are things that people say, and it's just a terminology. I mean, I just said it to you about your mom, but it's a common terminology. But as an 8-year-old child, that sounded so odd to me. I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
You didn't kill him. He died. He had a heart attack. Just one of those weird little things.
Yeah. Do you mind if I ask a question that you haven't seen yet?
Sure, of course.
I was wondering if maybe you could talk a little bit about some of the other advocacy work that you do, and maybe how that's changed, or maybe it hasn't since your recurrence.
Yeah. Well, my advocacy started because when I was diagnosed, I didn't have anybody in my family that even had cancer. So all these terms that I was hearing were so profoundly foreign to me. I didn't understand. I was being told to show up at a radiology department for a test, and this test and that test. And some of the tests were incredibly invasive, and nobody gave me a heads up. And some of the tests were really easy, and some of the tests were horrendously painful. Nobody told me that. You know, it's just, here's your script. This is where you need to be at this time. And so I felt at the time I didn't want any woman to ever feel the way I felt. And I had a great support system. I mean, my husband, my kids, my family, my friends, they were amazing. But they hadn't gone through it. So they couldn't give me that perspective of ask for sedation, or you might want to take a Xanax before.
Yes.
Nobody told me that. So that's when my advocacy began. I started writing my book, and I started to really lay out the things that they don't tell you about being young and having cancer, and how you have to be an advocate and your own biggest champion, and you've got to stand up for yourself, and you've got to ask these questions like, is this going to be painful? Can I have this with sedation? Can somebody come with me? So that's really where it kind of all began. When I was diagnosed the second time, the advocacy switched to more of a day-to-day immersion in the cancer community. So I keep a very active Facebook page under the title of my book, and it's there that I answer questions. I interact a lot with newly diagnosed women. I kind of help explain, and I'm not a medical professional, so I don't give any medical advice. I come at it from a perspective of, this is what to expect. This is why they're giving you the test. This is what to expect from the test. It's easy. Don't worry about it. Just, you're just going to relax and let them, the most painful thing is maybe a blood draw. And then there are other times that I'm like, no, ask for sedation, because I didn't, and I was clawing at the table. So they will do it with sedation, and you need to demand that you do get sedation for certain things. And I began blogging after the second diagnosis, and it was during those blogs that I began to realize, by just bringing up the daily hurdles, the things in everyday life that you either now look at with some perspective, or things that you look forward to, or memories that you have. And we're all kind of in the same boat. We all kind of feel the same way. We wax nostalgic about the 13-year-old that we were, but then I don't think any of us would actually want to go back to be that 13-year-old, but as a cancer survivor, you're going, oh, I had no problems. I have no real problems. I had braces. Okay, that was my biggest issue, maybe a zit. But yeah, so by blogging, I really began to engage my audience in this daily interaction and chat. And I also use my platform to talk about new technologies and new therapies and new things that are happening, and I call out people that are maybe fundraising for profit instead of for real help. And I will always, the month of October, I'm tapping away saying, I know we all want to give. We all have been touched by this disease. If you want to give here, not there. I really try to give some perspective in the other people that are advocating, because some are really putting the money into research and where it needs to be. And there are some groups that are just lining pockets. And if shopping cured cancer, it'd be cured by now. So,
yes. And the whole Pinktober movement, I think there's a whole lot of pink and not a lot of looking into the transparency with which the organizations that we're giving to are actually, using funds, because all of that is publicly available information.
Right. Right. And I think a lot of people, we've been so trained that when we see that pink ribbon, we immediately think, oh, you know what? I'll pay $5 for that because it's going towards something. When maybe a dime of that $5 is going towards something. But if you go here and buy this bracelet for $20, well, 15 of that is actually going to do some good. And it's illuminating those transparencies and those organizations that I feel have our back. There's some that I really feel are really immersed in what survivors need, and they're really they're fighting a good fight. They're really putting their money where their mouth is, and then, like I said, there are some that know people are going to see something pink or see a pink ribbon, and I'll buy that because I feel good about buying it, but is it really going to the right place? So I have no problem calling it out if I see something that I just go, just please think twice. Think twice. And I did a campaign a few years ago saying, know your pink. Know where your pink dollars are going. Good. Yeah, and it was fun. It was, it was every couple of days. I would point out a charity that's really putting that money to benefiting women, and and at the same time saying, and then we have this group over here who's just filling up your dollar store with pink ribbons, but there's nothing coming of it. So make your choice. Know where your pink dollars are going. We all want to feel like we're making a contribution. We've all been touched by this disease. So we want to feel that we're doing something good. And I always just feel like if I can be the person that educates just one person, then I've helped in a small way.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have one more question left, which I'm kind of sad about because it's been really fun chatting.
I know. Fun and fast.
Yeah. Someone keeps submitting the same question, which I think is fun. How did you find Lacuna Loft? Sometimes I know the answer to this, but I don't this time around.
It's funny. I know I found you guys on Facebook, but I don't remember how I got channeled to you. I can't remember how you actually came across my feed, but I know I caught you on Facebook and saw that you had a sign up for newsletter for, to be alerted to things in the inbox, and just kind of was like, I kind of like this. I like those grassroots community kind of startups. And I'm not in your community, you're on the other side of the country as me, but there was just something. If I did live in your community, I'd probably come hang out in your loft. I'd be like, hey, I'll come over for coffee, I'll swing by at lunchtime. But it's just, I don't know, there was just something that, certain things just kind of seem special. And it was just something that when I came across it on my Facebook feed, I was like, I kind of like this. I can't remember how it got on my feed though.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we connect with people on so many different platforms that I think that's probably realistic to realize that you can't always remember exactly where. And I want to
I can't remember if you guys were mentioned, or I just thought, this is just a neat little grassroots startup thing. I like it.
Yeah. I also want to tell everybody that if you want to hear more from Jenn, check out her book. Could you tell us the title one more time?
Thank you. Yes, it is Does This Outfit Make Me Look Bald? How a Fashionista Fought Cancer with Style.
Which I think is such a great title. And she also has written several times on the Lacuna Loft blog, so you can find her there.
And search me.
Yeah, that's right. And thank you so much for chatting with us today.
This was wonderful.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you kind of want to add or leave people with?
You know what? Just Do what feels right to you. You know, we all have a different way of handling this disease. And what's right for me isn't necessarily right for anybody else. And just be comfortable that if it feels right and if it's in your comfort zone, then you're doing the right thing, and really don't have to make anybody happy but yourself. That's the best advice I can give.
Oh gosh, that's awesome. We should put that on a post-it note and cheers it with some wine.
Yes, it sounds good.
Well, thank you so much, Jen. And we're looking forward to keeping up with you and reading more of your
Yeah,
wonderful
thank you.
thoughts as time goes by.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks.